Hi everyone, this is my talk on your child starting school and school readiness. Hopefully this helps. We ran the talk today and had about 7 people attending, but as promised I thought I'd put it on to the PNC site so that you all were informed as to some of my ideas on helping to start your child at school. School is a big step both for you and for your child. It's difficult because you're saying goodbye to a child that you've had with you for 5 years. So transition to school is difficult for both you and your child. So it's understandable that you might get a little bit upset at the time when they're starting school. I know myself, I went and bought a dog when my last child started school, which was many years ago now. I find that mostly parents are okay if their child has had a little bit of exposure to what's expected to start school, and so is your child. Starting school, when your child starts school, you'll find that there's lots of people involved in your child's life that weren't involved before. You also have a situation where you're giving your child over to complete strangers, which of course is something that's new and something different for you and your child. So be prepared that that's very, very normal to have those feelings of separation, and your child will have some separation issues as well. Hopefully not too bad, but in the beginning it is a bit difficult to get through some of those. Some of the children come to school for the first few days, then after the weekend they feel as if they've done that and they can ready to move on with their lives and they don't need to go anymore. But unfortunately they've got to be informed that it continues for a lifetime. Our education system is quite long. When your child starts school, you can do a few things to help them transition well. Help them by talking about their feelings. Get them to express how they're feeling, because sometimes as a parent we know exactly what our child needs and wants, but if they're with a teacher who doesn't know them very well, they need to be able to talk about what they need and want. So that's important to practice before you start school. When you are starting school, it's good to start some extra routines that may not have been in place in your household before this, especially a bedtime routine. Make sure that your child is going to bed on time every night at the same time and with some sort of bedtime ritual that you can find will help with their rest, and they absolutely need probably 10 to 12 hours a night when they're attending school. Otherwise they're too tired to concentrate and to focus on what they have to do for the day. So be sure that you have a routine that includes a story. Some of those routines of cuddling up in bed, reading a story together, settling down, all those things are necessary. And a child that's starting school should be going to bed about 7:30. Definitely asleep by 8. So make sure that your child is getting 10 to 12 hours per night. The other thing you can do to help prepare your child is to read them lots of books. I've talked about this before, how important it is to read stories to your children. Get them into the routine of hearing stories, listening to stories, participating in predicting, looking at the pictures, predicting what's going to happen. All those things are really important skills for your child to have before they come to school. And you'll be surprised at how quickly they will read once they get to school if you've been reading regularly to your child. I put on Facebook a few weeks ago a table of how bigger the vocabulary is of a child who is read to than a child who is not read to. It's important that you read to your child, not getting them to read to you, because the modelling is what actually helps your child to read. It's not about them reading, it's hearing you read to them. So try and remember that. That's a really important thing to have in place before they start school. There are some good little books that you can read for your child before they start school, and I have a list here. The Hippopotamus in the Playground Eating Cake is one of my favourite stories by Hazel Edwards. Another one is Jessica's Box by Peter Carnavas. And another one would be, sorry, I've just lost the place. Miss Mingo and the First Day of School by Jamie Harper. Charlie and Lola are always one of my favourite stories for little children. I'm absolutely too small to go to school. Another one is First Day by Margaret Wilde and Kim Gamble. And my absolute favourite is Just Jack by Jane Tanner. So all of those stories are great to read to your child in preparation for going to school. They're all about starting school. So that's always worthwhile to have those in your library or borrow them from the library. Your local library would probably be the best place of call for you, or you could come into our school library if you'd like to borrow those as well. Your child needs to learn how to cooperate with other children. If they haven't had much exposure to children in their little world, make sure that they're starting to do that before they start school. Sharing, taking turns, all of those things are important skills for your child to have when they start school. So I suggest that you join a playgroup or have play dates. All of those things can start to happen in this part of the year leading up to starting school. So try and organise part of their lives. If they're not already going to daycare or preschool, make sure you get along to a playgroup. There are reading sessions at libraries. All of those things can get your child participating, listening and cooperating with other people. So that's always a good skill to have ready to start school. Also get them to do lots of big movements with their body, making sure that they're moving all of their body at playgrounds and equipment, running, jumping, hopping. All of those things are necessary to lead to fine motor. Fine motor is where the muscles that you use when you're writing. So that's important to get the big muscles working before you can actually get the little muscles working. So that's always important as well. So get them playing outside, lots of imaginary games, try and encourage them to use their imagination, because imagination is an important tool helping your child to create stories and use their logical thinking to create stories in their own mind when they use imaginative play. So that's an important skill for them to have as well. Try and put away those keyboards and devices. Try and have them thinking of games and making cubbies, all of those things that a child can do at home. Another thing you can promote is speaking and listening, getting them to talk out loud without a whisper, trying to project their voices, trying to express what they have to say clearly to someone else other than you. Because sometimes as parents we understand exactly what they need, but other people don't. So make sure that your child is ready to communicate and ready to follow instructions. Speaking of instructions, increase the instructions that you're giving your child in readiness for school. Don't do everything for them. Try and get them to listen to the instructions and carry out what they need to do. If they forget, remind them, break it down into simpler steps. Try and give them as many instructions as they can cope with. Probably up to 3 would be fantastic before they start to school. So give them a few things that they have to go and collect, or a few different tasks to do within the one activity, so that they remember those things to do. Expressing themselves is very important, being able to speak clearly. Make sure that you have listened to their speech and make sure that they're speaking correctly, ready for school. If you have a little query about their speech, maybe speech pathology assessment would be the way to go. Just making sure that they are all okay for school. Also get their eyes checked before they start school, and hearing, because they're the main things that we would probably concentrate on if your child is having some difficulty with any problems at school. We would say to get those things checked first. So if you've already done that, you can very, very clearly say to the teacher, yes, their hearing's fine, their sight's fine, there shouldn't be any problems. I think we've covered just about everything today in what I covered this morning, but if there's any questions, once again, you can always contact me at school on a Tuesday on the school number, or on the DET email site, which is sandra.sloan@det.newsouthwales.edu.au. Thank you for listening today. Bye.